Madam Chair and members of the committee, it's an honor to be here to speak to you today about the work of the Climate Action Team and related climate activities underway in the state. As the Chair mentioned, my name is Andrew Altevogt, and I'm the Climate Change Program Manager in the Office of the Secretary at Cal-EPA. Secretary Adams apologizes that she was not able to be here to testify today. Today I'd like to cover two items. The first is an update on the current and planned future work of the Climate Action Team. And the second is a brief description of the protocol development work of the Climate Action Reserve and how that relates to some of the international issues that we've spoken about thus far. The Secretary of Cal-EPA is tasked under state law with coordinating climate activities in state government, and as part of that role, the Secretary chairs the Climate Action Team. As Chairman Nichols mentioned, other members of the Climate Action Team have been very involved in implementing important aspects of AB 32, and I'll touch on just a few of these activities to be coordinated work on green building efforts between these three departments, as well as Housing and Community Development, Department of General Services, and others. The State Water Board and Department of Water Resources have been working together, again, along with the Energy Commission, PUC, and the ARB on several water-related measures. The Department of Public Health has also been coordinating with the ARB as well as the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment and others on health impact analyses associated with the scoping plan. And then lastly, for these examples, the ARB has been coordinating with Caltrans, Housing and Community Development, and the Governor's Office of Planning and Research on issues associated with the implementation of Senate Bill 375. And this includes working with all the agencies represented on the Strategic Growth Council and linking the Strategic Growth Council efforts with those of the SB 375 sustainable planning work. In addition to the greenhouse gas mitigation efforts, of course, as we've heard and we'll hear more detail later, the state has formally launched its climate change adaptation efforts. And so over the next year, one of the main goals of the Climate Action Team it'll focus on bringing together these mitigation and adaptation efforts into a set of cohesive efforts that will address, we think, all aspects of climate change in the state. So the working groups of the Climate Action Team will be responsible for much of the work of the team over this next year. And just as a review, the working groups are on agriculture, biodiversity, energy, forestry, land use, oceans and coastal resources, research, state government, public health, water, and on the Western Climate Initiative. There will be several deliverables that will be the focus of the Climate Action Team efforts. The first will be, of course, completing the work required to adopt the regulations necessary to implement the scoping plan. The second will be a coordinated effort to bring together the mitigation and adaptation in each of the sector working groups. And so this will include prioritized list of measures that will be focused on in the near term, including a description of areas of overlap between adaptation and mitigation priorities. And this will involve each sector prioritizing the adaptation strategies described in the California adaptation strategy that you'll hear about later. For each of these priority measures, a measure analysis will be completed describing how the measure will be implemented in the near term. The third deliverable will be a coordinated research plan, which is being directed by the Energy Commission and builds off of work described in our current Climate Action Team report. And then there will be the 2010 Climate Action Team report, which will provide a consolidation of climate change, mitigation, adaptation, and research efforts, and it will also describe the coordination of regional and international climate efforts. I'd now like to briefly touch on the greenhouse gas reduction protocols that have been developed by the Climate Action Reserve and how they demonstrate another aspect of California's leadership on global climate efforts. The Climate Action Reserve, formerly known as the California Climate Action Registry, has become a global leader because of the stringency and integrity of its greenhouse gas accounting and protocol development work. And Secretary Adams serves as the chair of the board of directors of the Reserve. So the Reserve focuses on creating protocols for quantifying greenhouse gas emission reductions from offset projects to ensure the integrity and the credibility of those offsets. And the protocols that are adopted by the Reserve are stringent requirements for ensuring emission reductions are real, additional, permanent, verifiable, and enforceable. The protocols which have been adopted thus far by the Reserve include forestry, urban forestry, livestock waste management, landfill methane capture and combustion, organic waste diversion, coal mine methane capture and combustion, and nitric acid production. It's important to note that these protocols are drafted through a public process using work groups comprised of government, business, environmental, and academic experts. And it is also important to note that the ARB has typically served on the work groups and has chosen to endorse several of the protocols. Other state agencies, for example, the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection, have also been very involved in development of specific protocols. So California, through the Reserve, is leading the national voluntary carbon market, and these Reserve certified offsets are commanding the highest prices and occupying the majority of the voluntary market. And the Reserve standards are also seen as most likely to qualify for early action credits under proposed federal legislation. And the Reserve has also begun to expand internationally with two protocols adopted for use in Mexico, and has also begun work on reforestation protocol for Mexican forests. And it also intends to adapt all of its protocols to Mexico and also to take its program to Canada. And it has also been participating in discussions with the governor's Climate and Forest Task Force to support actions in Brazil, Indonesia, and other countries to address deforestation. So as with AB 32, the success of these protocols developed here in California is another demonstration of how efforts to address climate change that were begun in this state are having far-reaching influence nationally and internationally. And through these coordinated efforts, California's leadership on climate change policies will position the state to both benefit economically from upcoming national and global efforts and to reduce our vulnerability to the impacts of global warming. Thank you.